with Kerri Ann Hoskins, the one and only Sonya Blade. Sure, technically there was a Sonya Blade before her, and she did a fantastic job. But it was under Kerri Ann's watch that Sonya Blade became the iconic character for those who have played Mortal Kombat. You know that they skipped her in Mortal Kombat 2, and then she came back stronger than ever, thanks to Kerri Ann Hoskins. And thank you, Kerri Ann Hoskins, for being on the show today. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. It's a shocker. So your first in-game appearance, as far as I could tell from my research, was in NBA Jam. So you were alongside Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal, who both went on to have their own video games, and then you did too with Mortal Kombat. And that was one of the first games that ever used real celebrities, real people in the games through taking pictures of them on back of a green screen. We're all used to that now with Zoom calls and whatnot, but green screen was extremely fancy, especially for video games. So being one of the first to do that, you were also one of the first to have to explain to your mom, your friends and family, maybe, what you were doing with your career. How did you go about explaining to people that you were going to be physically you were going to be in a video game?
Well, I'll tell you what, right now, it was a lot easier to explain this to my mom than it was to explain her about Playboy. So when the video games came around, she was like, oh, God, thank you. So there's that. And then my siblings were actually gamers and stuff, and I was never a gamer. I would have video games and stuff at my apartment, and they would come over and they would come over and play these video games, and I would just sit there and watch and drink. Had no desire to play them whatsoever. So when I actually became one of these characters in the games, they were like, what are you doing? You don't even like video games. I'm like, I do now. So,
wow, that is
30
so
plus years later.
still a part of it. Yeah. You were, again, if my research served me correctly, you were a secret character that you could play in NBA Jam tournament. And from what I saw, they actually teased you as a secret character in a screenshot for the original game, but it was all a lie. And people are trying to unlock you for a year, and they couldn't. So then they finally could in NBA Jam tournament edition. So you're I don't know if you've heard of Akuma. He's a Street Fighter character. He's the secret boss that everyone wanted to be. You were the Akuma of basketball. And then you were also shooting.
I had all these people asking me what the code was, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
What an amazing life. And then you shot at Aerosmith. You were they were shooting CDs at you. You were Mistress Helga, who was a symbol of censorship, but also a pinup girl.
That was a fun game to make.
Yeah, I bet.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. All with Midway. But then Mortal Kombat 3 happened, and things just blew up. Sonya became an icon. So what has it been like for you in general, I guess, to be a part of this phenomenon?
Well, I think it inspired a lot of people, especially little girls. There's this strong woman that didn't take any crap from anybody and got the job done, and a lot of times better than the guys did. So she was very inspirational to kids and adults and women, girls, anybody that was in the military or looking to get into the military or looking to get into karate or anything, any kind of self-discipline. She just kind of put a fire under their butt. So I looked up to her too.
Well, you brought that. I mean, your depiction of the character brought all of that. Again, the character was great in Mortal Kombat 1, but the character really took off with the athleticism, the energy, the attitude that you brought. Were there any alternate outfits for Sonya that you remember for Mortal Kombat 3? And if you don't want to talk about that, it's okay. But
no. John drew a picture and gave it to the costume person, and she nailed it to the T. I remember looking at the original picture. He's like, this is Sonya, the new character Sonya. He wanted to really change her for for the third one, you know, because she was gone in the second, and
Mhm.
they had some problems on the first. So the third one, he just wanted a huge change. So we just mimicked whatever was in that photo that he came up with.
Ah, just like that. Amazing. The streamlined process. She always struck me as a little bit in Mortal Kombat 3 as a little bit more Sarah Connor, which is really cool. And one of the things I've always loved about Mortal Kombat is how it seems to lovingly borrow from, pay tribute to some real icons in Hollywood. It's got some Big Trouble in Little China influence, Terminator influence, and they also Midway worked on the Terminator games.
Mhm.
So yeah, it all sort of connects. And the thing, of course, that made the games amazing to me was that it was real people that I was playing as. I got to feel like I was really starring in one of these action movies. And then Mortal Kombat 4 came out and went with polygon-based graphics. And sorry to it all be negative about the legacy, but to me that was a massive downgrade. I wanted the real Sonya back. Instead, I got
Yeah,
polygon Sonya.
I mean,
So
it's a huge difference going from 3 to 4. I mean, 4 was just like, hey, put this costume on and we're gonna take some pictures of you. And then we're
yeah,
gonna peel you off and put you onto this model. And so things were a lot different. And I didn't get to do the moves and all that stuff. So it was not as exciting.
you were still involved with Mortal Kombat 4, but because it was polygon, they do motion capture with you still, or how did that work?
Just a little bit, just a little bit. Most of it was just I just modeled the
Uh-huh.
costume, and but the conventions and the promo stuff after that was fun. You know, we still got to put on the costume and go to E3 and that kind of stuff.
Oh, all right. That's great to hear. So you felt like it was downgrade's too strong of a term, but it was disappointing to hear that they weren't going with the real digitized actors for Mortal
Well, I
Kombat
think
4.
any employee really hates it when technology takes over. You know, got
That's
robots doing your work.
yeah, that is a very relatable point. And if I remember correctly, you also played the villain. They got you back for one more full motion video game where you got to play the villain in one of the Sub-Zero spin-off games. And
Kia,
that was fun to see. Kia, that's right. That
yeah.
was that was really awesome to see. And it was that the last time you were in a Mortal Kombat game?
I think so because I remember doing Kia. I was like 3 months pregnant with twins, and I had to like
Okay.
fix her costume so you can see my belly, and they had to like shoot tight at times, and um, just sucking it as hard as I could.
Okay.
I even did a
That
convention as Kia, and guys didn't even know that I had a belly under there. I just it had that leather outfit on, and you know my boobs were freaking huge because I was pregnant with twins. So I think that's all they looked at, and they just didn't notice the belly under. It's convenient.
wow. I don't know if you've already talked about that before, but that
No,
is
that's
some
new,
that is okay in my research. Did you say with twins?
right?
Right. Okay. Amazing stuff. We'll never look at Kia the same way again. Now I'm like rooting for her, like get through the pregnancy, Kia. Can't wait for you. Yeah, congratulations in advance. That's pretty amazing.
Two
So,
dragons, you know.
so, so you were pregnant with twins in your last role in a game, and you pulled it off fantastically. You looked great, and you, in my opinion, are even stronger looking today. I was on your Twitter feed, and you were showing your abdominal muscles on there, and I compared. I admit it. I got in the mirror and was like, "Who's better, me or Kerri Ann?" And you
Are
will
you gonna do
probably
it
know.
side by side right now? Cut to the side by side, please.
We will edit that in, much to the my embarrassment anyway. And yes, surprise, surprise, you beat me on that one. You are buff.
Thanks.
So,
I
I
work
mean,
hard.
if I were making a game, I would want you in it. Would you want to be in another fighting game like in the old
Oh,
days?
absolutely. I am 51 years old and I still have so much to prove. No, no, really. I enjoyed him so much. I would love to do him again. And I feel like I still could. I can still do the flips and all that stuff. So and the punches and
Well, okay, that would be incredible. I'll talk to some people. You know, I'm a vague acquaintance of Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith. I've only met him
Oh,
once or twice, but he's a friend of a colleague. And I know he wants another Revolution X for sure. The band's
really?
totally. Oh yeah, he talks about how he bonded with his kids over it, and similar stuff as probably happened with you pretty
I
soon.
hope so.
With there, with there, other than a fighting game, is there any other kind of acting, other kind of game, other kind of role you might want to take on?
Well, I know video games, and they were easy to me, and I would love to do video games. I mean, that's my legacy, and I'd really to stick to that. I don't know if my acting is strong enough for a movie. I'd have to have some training or something like that, or somebody on the side do it like this.
Well,
Unless they just made me think about my life, then I'd just be crying through the whole movie. So I
I
don't know.
mean, a biopic of your life would be incredible, and you could, of course, play yourself just like Howard Stern did. And I think you do even better than Howard Stern. But yeah, it sounds like video games is where you'd want to stay. It's the world you know.
It could be like Titanic. I could just think back of my younger life with all my wrinkles and tell a story.
Your wrinkles, like right now, do you think you have wrinkles? Because we're just making friends now. It's a little you seem wrinkle free
You want
to
me to
me.
zoom in?
Okay, I'm just gonna have to trust you. I'm a good 5 or 6 years younger than you, but I'm absolutely certain that if we were out in public, people would be like, "So, out with your dad today, Kerri Ann? How's that going? You look a lot younger than people younger than you, and so forth."
Thank you. That
Well,
has happened to my
I can
husband, but don't tell anybody, okay?
I won't tell a soul. So another thing you've been doing is you create this incredible artwork. Finding out that about you, actually, my undergrad was in fine art. So whenever I see somebody is willing to sit down in front of a blank canvas of any kind and say, "I'm just gonna try to put something out there," I immediately feel a kinship with them. And you do that not
Yeah.
only with traditional materials, but you use like geodes and natural materials, trusting in them to create work that you can shape and hone. So I have to ask about that. What drew you to start creating that kind of artwork?
Well, I've always had a huge love of nature. I love being outdoors. I love animals. And I grew up on a farm. And my brother and I hung out with my brother quite a bit, who's just 13 months younger than me. And we used to just go out and explore and just be mystified by all of God's creations, and we were constantly building stuff together, tree houses and just trying to um, just make use of the materials that we had, because we had no money growing up. And um, my parents divorced when I was like 6, and my mom remarried a Vietnam vet who had flashbacks all the time. And so we spent a lot of time outside and a lot of time, on our own because my mom just had a lot to deal with. So I think it comes from just a lifetime of that and just having a love to create things and be creative and express yourself.
When I see somebody like you, I think, I mean, you're incredibly athletic. You've got movie star good looks. You've been in video games ever since I was a teenager. You think like, well, this person is one of the lucky ones. But just because you are in incredible shape and so on doesn't mean your life has been easy. And
Looks are always deceiving. I actually have a good story about that.
yeah, I'd love to hear it.
When I first had my twins, the first year, I did not sleep at all. They were constantly crying. They were having seizures. They weren't eating. They were vomiting 8 times a day. They had cerebral palsy and seizure disorders. And um, the first year, it was just, I barely even remember that first year because I was just so sleep deprived and stressed and just trying to keep them alive. And I had a rose garden outside. And there was one day where I was out trimming my roses. I had, 5 minutes. Maybe they were napping or whatever, but I was trimming my roses outside and a woman walked by. She had a carriage and the baby was crying. And I remember hearing it. I remember, but it didn't faze me. I'd rather have that baby who only cries for, 5-10 minutes on a walk than the situation that I was in, because it was just so intense. And she kind of waved at me and said hello. And then later on, we got to know each other. And she goes, I have to tell you, when I first saw you and I was walking my baby who's able-bodied with no problems, I was so tired and I saw you trimming your roses. And I thought to myself, it must be really nice to have time to trim your roses. And she goes, I had no idea what you were going through at that time. And it's just how you can portray something to somebody, but it's really not what's happening,
Mm,
and that's why you should just never judge people and never think the worst about them or make stories. And just, you don't know their story, you don't know what they're going through.
mm.
And to look at someone like me and say, oh yeah, she's got it so easy. Just live with me for a week and we'll see how you do.
Well, I think people are going to be wowed by the story that you've been willing to tell us today, and I'm really grateful for it. I'll never see Sonya or Kia the same way again, and I mean that in the best possible way. To find out the real person behind it means so much. Last-ish question, unless you want to talk more, I would talk to you all day, of course, but for your time, I did want to ask about this concept of identity. And you played Sonya when you were, I think, in your mid-20s. Does that sound about right? And that's a time when you've kind of figured out who you are, but you are still establishing your professional identity and still moving forward as you look back on your life. I'm sure you look back on who you were in your 20s and were like, wow, she did not become her full self yet. Like you're still growing and improving, evolving. And Sonya was a part of who you later became. So I'm wondering about how the character of Sonya and how just playing video game characters in general has had any sort of influence on your identity, how you think of yourself and who you've become.
I think growing up as I did and not having anything and having to fight for everything that I did have. And I grew up with a really honest family. And I have 6 sisters and 1 brother. And we, some of us are halves, but we're all just as close as if we're, full-blooded brothers and sisters. And um growing up, I I had to fight for so much that when Sonya came around, I more or less just kind of identified with her. Like, oh, here's a badass chick who doesn't take any shit and just needs to get the job done, and
Mhm.
that's always been my mentality, just keep your feelings out of it, and get the job done.
Mm.
I really identified with her, and I kind of grew with her, and I went through some scary times in my lives where I had stalkers, and I didn't know how to fight. And that was my inspiration for learning karate and learning how to shoot a gun and all that stuff, self-defense, is because I was actually attacked. So um Sonia was just kind of part of me, and she felt comfortable,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
and she
And
still does. Now I think she's kind of weak compared to me, but whatever.
yeah, yeah. Her in her storyline, I think she married Johnny Cage and had a kid and stuff like that. Whereas you've got twins and with special needs, and you've had real stalkers, so then you've learned to fight, and then yeah, I would play the Kerri Ann Hoskins game and watch the movie, read the book, buy the cereal, get the action figures. I would get it all, and I hope it all happens. Anything else you want folks to know before we sign off?
I'm actually talking to an author right now about doing an autobiography or biography. I'm not sure yet. Um, but he's interested in writing it. And I'm like, do I want my story out there? Do I want, because I've done some bad things. And
So
I've
as
had really
every
bad things done to me. Do I
yeah,
want everybody to know all that stuff?
uh-huh.
I don't know. I mean, it would get really real for me. And I don't know, my family, my husband, my ex. I don't know. That's just a lot of shit to put out there, right?
It is. You're already immortal. You know, you're gonna live hopefully another 100 years, but you are gonna die someday. So am I. We're older. You're already immortalized in Mortal Kombat. You're already immortalized in various things, your artwork. But to have your story immortalized by somebody that you trust, I was on a reality TV show years and years ago, so I know what it's like to have my actual story broadcast to
Yeah.
millions of people. It's pretty weird, but when you know that people out there have seen your true story or is as true as they're going to do in reality TV with the editing and whatnot, and they were touched by it, moved by it, said that it wasn't just, in your case, it wouldn't be just Sonya that helped people get up in the morning and feel like, well, if she can do it, so can I. It's Kerri Ann whose story. I mean, you've already put enough of yourself out there to inspire people. I was reading about you learning how to do marathons, and I was like, I was actually jogging, thinking about you doing a 26-mile marathon for the first time, and your abs. I was like, I need those Kerri Ann abs. I need to jog a little bit harder.
Yeah, and I was undiagnosed with this condition that said you cannot do marathons. And then I did 4 of them, and I think I did like 16 half marathons, and I kept on injuring myself. And then finally, I get this diagnosis of Ehlers-Danlos with autonomia, and my doctor was like, I can't believe you were doing marathons. And I'm like, neither can I. Wonder why it sucked so bad.
Did it anyway. And this, I read a little about this. There was like, they needed to surgically implant a mesh. Is that right? Or did I read that
Yeah,
wrong?
I have mesh in my belly button, in my inguinals. I have my abs sewn together because after I got pregnant, my abs just kind of ripped open.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of stitches and staples and mesh inside my abdomen.
Incredible. And that would leave a lot of people on the couch for a long time. And you were like, let's do some.
I will have a kid over and over, cesarean, whatnot, compared to that surgery where they sewed my abs back together. You cannot do anything. You can't laugh. You can't cough. You can't sneeze. Sneezing kills you.
Oh my
You
God.
can't roll over. You can't sit up. It sucks for weeks.
Yeah. Pain, fear. You've channeled it all into productivity. You've felt the emotions and then used them to motivate you to work, to self-improve. It's just, I'm just yelling about being a fan of you now. That's got to be a little weird. But yeah, it's incredibly inspirational stuff, and it just makes me want even more success for you. I'm biased towards underdogs, towards people who have had to fight for what they got, and that's definitely you. So
Thank you.
geez, don't know what else to say without just gushing about wanting to buy your book, buy your cereal, buy your video games, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to do that.
Cereal.
I know, the Kerri Ann Hoskins cereal. It would be abs. It'd be ab-shaped puffs.
Ring.
Say again? Pink
rings with like kind of like Lucky Charms, because I love Lucky Charms. It's gluten-free.
Sounds delicious. I was thinking ab-shaped puffs, but Lucky Charms makes sense too.
I could do that too.